The 90-foot wave slammed into the Coast Guard station like the fist of an angry god. Inside, 12 elite rescue pilots stared at the radar screen showing 47 sailors drowning in the North Atlantic. Not one of them reached for their flight suit. Then, a quiet voice came from the back of the room, the voice of the woman they'd been calling the tech lady for 6 years. "I'll go." Commander Blake Morrison laughed until he saw her eyes. That's when he realized he'd been working alongside a legend who'd saved more lives than his entire unit combined. But by then, it was already too late to stop her. Maya Thornton arrived at Chesapeake Coast Guard Air Station at 0530 hours, just as she had every morning for 6 years. Her faded blue coveralls bore a small patch. Maintenance Tech, Thornton. At 41, she moved with the efficiency of someone who'd spent decades in military discipline, though no one at the station knew about those decades. Her dark blonde hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her weathered face showed the kind of lines that came from too many hours in salt air and too few hours of sleep. The helicopter hangar smelled of aviation fuel and ocean breeze. 3H, H-65. Dolphin helicopters sat waiting. Maya set down her thermos and began her pre-storm inspection of Rescue 17, the helicopter nobody wanted to fly because of its temperamental systems. "Morning, tech lady," called Lieutenant Kevin Hicks, a 28-year-old pilot with 2 years of experience and an ego that filled the hangar. He walked past without making eye contact, already dressed in his flight suit. Maya nodded but said nothing. She'd learned years ago that silence was easier than correction. Commander Blake Morrison entered at 0600, his boots clicking against the concrete floor. At 52, Morrison had spent 30 years in the Coast Guard, rising through the ranks through competence, political savvy, and an unwavering belief in traditional hierarchy. "Thornton," he called without looking at her. "I need Rescue 14, ready by 0800. "Rescue 14 has a hydraulic leak in the tail rotor assembly," Maya replied quietly. "It needs 12 hours to repair properly." Morrison turned to face her, irritation clear on his face. "Can it fly or can it?" "It can fly, but not safely in hurricane conditions." "Your job is to fix helicopters, Thornton, not to determine mission parameters," Morrison said sharply. "I need that bird ready by 0800. Maya met his eyes briefly before returning to her work. "Yes, sir." What Morrison didn't know, what nobody at the station knew, was that Maya had once been Lieutenant Commander Maya Thornton, the youngest pilot in Coast Guard history to earn that rank. She'd completed 89 successful rescue missions in conditions that would have grounded most pilots. She'd received commendations from 3 presidents and had trained half the current rescue instructors in advanced storm flying techniques. Then, 6 years ago, during a Category 4 hurricane rescue operation off the Virginia coast, her co-pilot, her husband, David Thornton, had died when a freak wave capsized their helicopter. Maya had managed to auto-rotate the crippled aircraft to a controlled crash landing, saving herself and 2 rescued sailors. But David had been killed on impact. The investigation had cleared her of any wrongdoing, calling it an unpredictable act of nature that no pilot could have anticipated. But Maya knew the truth. She'd been focused on the rescue basket for 3 seconds, just 3 seconds, instead of scanning for rogue waves. And in those 3 seconds, David had died. She'd requested immediate retirement and asked for an entry-level maintenance position at a different station, far from the memories. For 6 years, she'd kept her promise to David. She would never fly again, never put another co-pilot at risk, never be responsible for someone else's death. But that promise was about to be broken. By 0930 hours, Hurricane Eleanor had exceeded all predictions. Sustained winds of 165 miles per hour, with gusts approaching 190 waves, measuring over 100 feet. And the cargo ship MV Atlantic Providence, carrying 47 crew members, had lost engine power and was taking on water 80 miles off the Virginia coast. The distress call came through at 0947 hours. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Motor Vessel Atlantic Providence. We are taking on water. Engines are dead. We have lost steering. We are listing 35 degrees to starboard. Request immediate assistance. We have 47 souls on board. In the pilot ready room, 12 rescue pilots gathered around Commander Morrison, staring at the mission parameters appearing on the tactical display. The numbers were devastating. Wind speeds that would tear an aircraft apart, wave heights that made water landing impossible, visibility measured in feet rather than miles. "That's outside our operational parameters," Lieutenant Hicks said, his earlier bravado notably absent. "It's outside everyone's operational parameters," added Lieutenant James Warren, a veteran pilot with 12 years of experience. "Morrison, we'd be flying into what amounts to a horizontal waterfall. The wind shear alone would tear the aircraft apart." Morrison's jaw tightened. "There are 47 people drowning out there." "And if we go, there'll be 49 people drowning," Warren replied quietly. "Sir, with all respect, this isn't a rescue mission, it's a suicide mission." Around the room, heads nodded. Even the youngest pilots, the ones who usually jumped at any opportunity to prove themselves, were silent. That's when Maya spoke from the doorway. "I'll go." The room fell silent. 12 pilots turned to stare at the maintenance tech who'd somehow wandered into their briefing. Morrison's face flushed with anger. "Thornton, this is a restricted briefing. Return to your duties." "I said I'll go," Maya repeated, stepping into the room. "I'll fly the mission." Lieutenant Hicks laughed first, a nervous sound that broke the tension. "The tech lady wants to fly? That's rich." "Actually," Maya said quietly, "I have an ATP license with rotorcraft rating type rated on the HH-65 Dolphin, HH-60 Jayhawk, and HH-3F Pelican. 2,847 flight hours, 89 successful rescue missions, and—" "That's enough," Morrison interrupted. "I don't know what fantasy you're living in, Thornton, but call the personnel records office," Maya said, her voice still quiet but carrying a new edge. "Ask them to pull the file on Lieutenant Commander Maya Thornton. Service dates 2006 to 2018. Call sign Valkyrie." Chief Petty Officer Sarah Chen's eyes went wide. Several of the younger pilots looked confused, but Warren and 2 of the older pilots suddenly went very still. "Valkyrie," Warren breathed. "Jesus Christ, Valkyrie is a legend. She did the Puerto Rico rescue during Hurricane Maria. She pulled 12 people out of a sinking ferry during a typhoon in Alaska. He stopped, staring at Maya with new eyes. "She died. There was an accident 6 years ago." "My co-pilot died," Maya corrected. "I retired." Morrison's face had gone from angry red to pale white. "You're that Thornton?" The room erupted in questions, but Morrison silenced them with a sharp gesture. "Even if you are who you say you are, you've been out of the cockpit for 6 years. You're not current, you're not qualified, and you're not flying one of my aircraft into that storm." Maya met his eyes with the same calm steadiness she'd maintained for 6 years. "Commander, with respect, every pilot in this room has already told you they won't fly this mission. You're looking at radar data and seeing an impossible situation. I'm looking at the same data and seeing a difficult but achievable rescue operation. I've flown worse conditions than this." "No one has flown worse conditions than this," Morrison shot back. "Hurricane Katrina, 2005. Hurricane Rita, same year. Typhoon Haiyan, 2013. I flew in all 3. This storm is big, Commander, but it's not unprecedented." "What's unprecedented is having 47 people die because we were too afraid to try." Morrison stood silent, his jaw working, knowing he was trapped. He could order her to stand down, but then he'd be explicitly choosing to let 47 people die when someone qualified had volunteered. "Thornton, if you crash my helicopter—" "If I crash, Commander, I won't be around for you to reprimand," Maya interrupted. "Rescue 17 is fueled and ready. I did the pre-flight inspection this morning. I'll need a rescue swimmer." "I'll go," Chen said immediately, stepping forward. If Valkyrie's flying, I'm going. The flight suit felt strange after 6 years, but Maya's hands moved through the pre-flight routine with muscle memory that hadn't faded. She climbed into the left seat, the pilot's seat, and for a moment, the memories crashed over her. David sitting in the right seat, his easy smile, his voice in her headset. Ready when you are, Valkyrie? But David wasn't here, and she had to fly this mission alone. The engines spooled up with their characteristic whine. Maya pulled collective, and Rescue 17 lifted off the tarmac. The gusting winds immediately tried to push the helicopter sideways, but her hands compensated automatically. She transitioned to forward flight and turned toward the storm. The first rain band hit them like a wall of water. Visibility dropped to meters. Turbulence increased dramatically. Maya's hands moved constantly across the controls, making hundreds of micro-adjustments to keep the aircraft stable. How bad is it going to get? Chen asked from the cabin. Very bad, Maya replied honestly, but we've done this before. 40 minutes later, through sheets of rain and lightning, the MV Atlantic Providence appeared, a 400-foot cargo vessel listing so severely that its deck was nearly vertical. Crew members clung to railings on the high port side, 47 people facing certain death if they let go. Maya brought the helicopter into a hover 50 feet above the tilted deck. The wind immediately tried to push them into the ship's superstructure. She compensated with aggressive inputs, essentially flying the helicopter sideways to maintain position. The waves below were massive. 90-foot walls of water passing under the ship with terrifying regularity. Chen deployed the rescue basket. One by one, they pulled survivors up. Maya held the hover, her entire body tense with the effort of keeping the helicopter stable. The wind gusts exceeded 150 miles per hour. The aircraft shuddered and dropped and climbed. Her hands moved constantly, fighting the storm for every foot of position. 6 trips, 6 impossible hovers, 6 transfers to a cruise ship standing by in safer waters. By the final trip, Maya's arms shook from sustained effort, and the helicopter showed stress warnings on multiple systems. Then came the last radio call. Rescue 17, Providence. We have 5 crew members trapped below deck. The ship is going over. Maya's blood went cold. 5 people trapped. The ship capsizing. Minutes remaining. She brought the helicopter directly over the capsizing vessel. Chen deployed with a hydraulic rescue saw and cut through the watertight door while Maya held an impossible hover just feet above the rolling ship. The fuel gauge ticked down toward 0. "I've got them!" Chen shouted. "Sending them up now!" Maya pulled collective and climbed away just as the ship completed its capsize. They'd gotten everyone out with seconds to spare, but now they had no fuel to reach land. Through the rain, Maya saw a small rocky island with a flat area barely larger than her rotor diameter. She descended toward it, fighting the wind every foot of the way. The margin for error was measured in inches. The skids touched solid rock at the exact moment the engines quit from fuel starvation. They were down. They were safe. All 47 crew members rescued. Maya Thornton, the woman they'd called the Tech Lady, had just completed the most difficult rescue in Coast Guard history. When they returned to base that evening, Commander Morrison was first to approach. His expression was complicated: embarrassment, respect, and something that might have been awe. "Lieutenant Commander Thornton," he said, using her correct rank for the first time. "That was the most extraordinary piece of flying I've ever witnessed. Why didn't you tell us who you were?" Maya looked at the helicopters lined up in the hangar. "Because I didn't want to be her anymore. Valkyrie saved lives but lost the person she loved most. I thought if I stopped being her, I could stop carrying that weight. And now I know that whether I fly or fix engines, I'm still responsible for doing what I'm capable of. When people need help, I can't hide from that." Morrison extended his hand. "We'd like you back, Commander. Not as a technician, as a pilot, as an instructor." Maya shook his hand. "On one condition. I'm still fixing Rescue 17. Nobody knows that bird like I do." Morrison smiled. "Deal." 6 months later, Maya Thornton stood at the front of the ready room in her flight suit with commander's insignia restored, teaching young pilots about storm dynamics and the difference between courage and ego. Outside, Rescue 17 sat ready on the tarmac, maintained by the best technician in the service, awaiting the hands of a legend who'd learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is refuse to stay invisible when people need you most. The alarm klaxon sounded. Another distress call. More people in trouble. Maya pulled on her helmet. Let's go save some lives, and they did. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and smash that like button for more powerful stories like this one. What would you have done in Maya's situation? Would you have stayed silent for 6 years or revealed your identity sooner? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Where are you watching from today? Let us know your country in the comments. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.